I'd like to see a copy of the actual invoice. And I'm kind of in a tough spot here. If I vote no, and the supervisor votes no, it's going to die a natural death. So I might as well just say yes to table it. I mean, if it's a tie vote, it doesn't go anywhere. So I will vote to table it. Because I know if I vote no, the supervisor...
Well, if they're gonna vote to table it, I will vote to table it with them. I mean, it's gonna stay there anyway. All I'm saying is the man's gonna wait another month to get paid.
I agree.
So, I mean, you're not gaining nothing here.
That is unfortunate, but it's not the board's fault.
I would like to say to this guy, we're not paying you this month until we see who you are and look at the bill, and then I'm gonna apologize for another month we're not paying you. But go ahead.
Then I would suggest that when things are placed on the agenda, and we're to vote on them, that we should have every bit of information that we need to make a conscious decision on whether to vote it yes or no. So before you chastise us for not paying the man for another month, maybe we should have all the information that we need in order to do the right thing and vote either yes or no. And my vote is yes to table it.
Mr. Calder?
Again, we don't even know who we're paying, so I vote yes to table it.
Supervisor Delgado?
Yes, we're taking.
Motion passes. Resolution number 226-11. Authorize the town attorney to enter into a settlement agreement in the matter of Frank Santoro versus Town of Rotterdam, index number 2009-1628, and index number 2010-1137, Article 7, tax proceeding for the tax year 2009 and 2010.
Do I have a motion?
I have a question. I personally requested on Monday that John Mazeka, our assessor, be here to explain these since he was in full agreement of them. Can you tell me why he's not here? Is he here? I requested his presence and you told me that you would have him here to explain these.
Explain this tax.
On Monday night agenda, I requested that the assessor be present so he can discuss these two with the town board.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Andy.
He was here Monday night and explained it to you.
The assessor was not here Monday night. John Mazeka was supposed to be here tonight to discuss this.
Good evening again. I represent Mr. Santoro as well as the Piggly Eventos, which is 22711. And Mr. Levy, you are correct. I was at the agenda meeting when you requested that he attend tonight. I don't see him here, but what I can tell you and represent for the record is that both of these settlements have been approved by Mr. Mazeka. In fact, the settlement numbers were his offer to me, not something we offered to him. These two settlements have been approved both by Mr. Mazeka and the town attorney. I can't add anything further than that other than to put that on the record, and you can confirm that with both of them, and they will confirm that. I had a conversation with Mr. Mazeka today about these two, as a matter of fact, so he will confirm that these settlement numbers are his. They have been negotiated between the three parties, myself, the town attorney, and Mr. Mazeka, and we believe it's a fair settlement. I would ask that you do act upon these this evening because there is a time constraint involved. And let me please just explain it to you briefly. These two cases are for 2009 and 2010. If the town board doesn't authorize these settlements this evening, they may apply some conditions, but if they aren't authorized at tonight's meeting, then I will be required to protect my client's interest to file a third lawsuit for 2011, which has to be filed by the end of this month. So that's the reason that we kind of expedited the negotiations and really kicked it up in the high gear to get to where we can agree to settle, so a third lawsuit doesn't have to be filed. If these two settlements aren't approved this evening, I'm forced to file the third one, and then when it settles, and it will settle because everybody agrees on the numbers, the town's going to be responsible for a third year's refund because the lawsuit has been filed. So if you authorize the settlement now, that avoids me doing the paperwork to file for the third year, but it also avoids the town being responsible for paying a refund on the third year when the settlement is reached.
Andy, can you talk about the appraisals that we heard the other night?
Sure. I have, for the Pigley-Vento partnership, and the town has in their file, I don't know if you received copies, I have an appraisal, a valid appraisal from Del Palmer Appraisal Company, which is a recognized, reputable company, for their office building, my client's office building, at $410,000. By way of history, when Mr. Maseka was the assessor previously, the Pigley-Ventos built their office building on Vine Roll Drive. When it was fully constructed, Mr. Maseka assessed it and placed a value on it on $445. $445,000 was the value that he placed upon it. When Mr. Maseka left and was replaced by Mr. Surprise, the first year Mr. Surprise was in office, he increased the assessment on the office building to $766,000. I don't know if it's 700, I don't have the numbers in front of me. 700,000 and change. Without an explanation. It's the same building. Nothing changed. As I explained it to people, one night my clients went to bed and they had a building assessed at $445,000. They woke up the next morning and got a letter in the mail. It was now assessed at $735,000, $760,000. No, nothing changed at the building. The same is true, and so that in order to fight it, Craig Surprise wouldn't negotiate. He said, my number's good, you go get appraisal, I'll see you in court. We got an appraisal. The appraisal came in at less than what Mr. Maseka had valued it originally. Mr. Maseka, in the settlement negotiations, said to me, look, I had it at $445, that's what I think it's worth, that's what I'm willing to settle it at. We are giving up $35,000 in assessed value, because if this goes to court, we're the one with the $410,000 appraisal. So we have to meet in the middle. We can't get everything we want. So by John saying, I had it at $445, I think that's a fair number, that's what I'll offer you, my clients accepted that as a reasonable compromise. Regarding Mr. Santoro, Mr. Santoro has a home on Mariahville Road, and it's got a garage in the back that his son runs the business operations out. It's Frank Santoro. I think everybody in town knows him. He's an older guy. He's pretty well known. He's a good guy. He went to bed one night, and his property was valued at $225,000, which was the number placed upon it by Mr. Maseka. He got up one morning and opened the mail, and his property was now assessed at $485,000. Again, same property. Within 24 hours, it almost doubled in value. No explanation on why it occurred. On that one, I consulted with Mr. Maseka. Mr. Maseka has some type of computerized program where he can assess values for properties that are both commercial and residential, and he did it while I was on the phone with him. He said, no, the value on that's $266. That's the value I would accept. And I went to my client. My client said, well, I think it's $225, but I'll accept $266 because it's a heck of a lot better than what I'm paying now for $465 with no reason. So that's where those numbers were derived for Mr. Santoro. Now, answer any other questions you have.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
That was very good, Mr. Ray. Stay tuned. Stay tuned.
Okay.
Tell me to tell you, stay tuned. All right, we're still up for discussion on this item?
Yeah, I just want to mention one thing. I understand what Mr. Brick said, and I fully agree with what's been taking place here. And God knows we don't need any more grievances or lawsuits. We've had our full. But I do agree with Ms. Leva again about the fact that she did request Mr. Maseka be here at the meeting, and apparently it was ignored. Or maybe somebody just forgot. We give him credit there. But when a town board member does ask for explanation or does ask the supervisor's office for a department head to be here, I think that should be done, unless there's some extenuating circumstances why they can't be. But we want to proceed with this resolution, it's fine with me.
We're looking for a motion on this, Supervisor. We need a motion for this.
I'll make the motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Call the vote.
Mr. Godlewski?
Now it's Mr. Godlewski's turn to speak, and only Mr. Godlewski. I'm very familiar with assessments, what has transpired in the town, say over the last 4 or 5 years. And I probably got a little more background than the rest of the board, a little more time. So I know what to look for when I see a resolution to change assessments. A couple of weeks ago, we had a significant one that the board acted on. And at that time, the attorney, Mr. LaCarty, came in before we voted on it and gave us an explanation. Nothing against Mr. Brick, but he represents his client. Mr. LaCarty represents us. I had a feeling that the assessor wasn't going to be here tonight. So I limped out of my house this morning to come to Town Hall and paid a visit to the assessor's office. And I gotta be careful what I say about the former assessor. I have nothing against him. However, I put him through the ringer for 3 years, all right? Because I wanted to understand when I saw an assessment change, whether it was high or low, what the reasoning was for it. I asked the clerk to give me both folders on these properties. And I did a review, all right? And it's interesting. We'll start with Mr. Santor's property.